The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Our guest today, Dr. Rebecca Valla, is an integrative psychiatrist with a deep interest in NDEs and what they can teach us about ourselves. Dr. Valla grew up in a large family which was attached to an exclusive Brethren sect, the Plymouth Brethren. Her spiritual path became her guiding light at a young age and allowed her to navigate a very dysfunctional and isolated early life experience. It led to the discovery of psychotherapy as a healing art and to a blending of the spiritual and the psychological, what Carl Jung termed the process of individuation. Dr. Valla became involved in the metaphysical as she developed her intuitive abilities, which led to much reading and studying. She has an integrative outpatient practice in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is now within the larger context of a holistic health center. And Dr. Valla's interests include past lives, reincarnation, inner child healing, and self-love. Dr. Valla is a board-certified psychiatrist with a holistic focus, integrating mindfulness with traditional psychiatry methods. Through heart work and soul work, Dr. Valla's unique approach to psychiatry helps to bring her clients into a state of alignment with their highest good. Rebecca, welcome to NDE Radio.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great. It's great to have you. Rebecca, I want to talk to you today about how NDEs can present opportunities for psychological breakthroughs. But before we go there, and this just crossed my mind last night, I want to ask you if it's possible the whole country right now may be experiencing a form of PTSD.
Yeah.
Last night, the president gave a rambling press conference in which he mused on injecting or ingesting disinfectant as a means of combating COVID-19. And people are so stressed these days by this pandemic, they might actually try it. Can there be such a thing as group traumatic stress disorder, and how can we deal with it?
Well, yes, and I see in my practice a lot of people are they're already experiencing triggers of trauma just from the political climate that we've been in now for several years. Because the leader of the country is thought of as a father figure, and we don't necessarily plan that; it just happens. And so if we have a feeling that our father figure doesn't care about us, is not equipped to be protective, does not have the capacity for wisdom, then we can feel ourselves thrown back into experiences where we've been children and have not been able to rely on adults, particularly father figures, to be available, to be wise, to be protective, to be loving, and it leaves children in a very insecure place, and so people are being triggered all of the time these days. Now with the pandemic, there's even more of a threat, feeling that, we need protection and we need someone to watch out for us, and the knowledge that not something we can count on.
In an address you gave at an IANDS conference, you mentioned your father was rageful and violent.
Yes.
And growing up for you was just a matter of waiting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear the same approach suggested, just wait it out for a vaccine and also for the November election. But is there anything we can do in the meantime to stay psychologically balanced? Was there anything you could have done as a child, or what did you do as a child to deal with your father?
Well, I think there's always something that we need to do, and the question is whether we have the courage to do it. So even now, people need to look within, and that's one of the benefits. If you think of silver linings, that is impossible right now with what we're facing, is the opportunity and the need to look within and to find that we have strength and we have spiritual guidance that is always available to us, but we have to turn toward it, and we have to open ourselves to it, and we have to ask for the peace and the comfort and the awareness that we're needing. So yes, that's what we need to be doing.
Well, I know in the talk you gave at IANDS, you were really driving toward a state of achieving self-love.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what's the difference between, say, an ego-driven bully, a narcissist, and someone who's achieved a state of self-love?
Well, selfishness is completely not self-love. They're two different things. Selfishness, people develop selfishness and narcissism and self-involvement, self-absorption, because they're disconnected from their child self, from their true self. And that happens very early in life. That generally happens within the first 2 years of life, that people become disconnected from their innocent child, authentic, true self. And then they have to continue to live in whatever environment that has contributed to that disconnection, because they have to survive in that environment. And so that's the beginning of narcissism and selfishness. And it creates patterns of disconnection from self, which then lead to disconnection from other people. Self-love is about a connection to one's authentic self, connection to one's innocent child self and authentic true self. And that allows for us to have greater access to a connection to our higher self, because our authentic, true, innocent little person inside of us is how we are connected to our higher self, the self of our, where we will head, where we will go when we leave this earth. And so that is what we strive for in terms of self-love, that we know we are children of God, and we know that we're here to learn about love, and we know that we must love ourselves if we're going to have the capacity to love other people. And so we learn and do more and more for what brings us into alignment with our higher self. And that's a mouthful, but that's essentially how psychological and spiritual work is accomplished. It's connection with our higher self and with our innocent, authentic inner child.
I know love and forgiveness are very important to our psychological health, but how do we reconcile the need to forgive with the impulse, like from the movie Network, to open the window and scream, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore"?
Well, we have to forgive ourselves. We have to know that we're not perfect and we're not intended to be perfect. And the more that we can accept our own flaws, it helps to have a sense of humor. And it also helps to have humility, to be able to have humility, and to know that none of us really is any better than any of the rest of us. We are all on this earth journey. We've been here before. We'll likely be here again. And we're here to learn about love for self, love for other, love for the earth, and love for all living things. And forgiveness is a part of every day. It starts with forgiving ourselves, and it goes on to the capacity to forgive other people. And that old adage, to err is human and to forgive is divine. I say that to err is human and to forgive is human also, and that we are divine.
Now, what if you've reached a point where you can begin to forgive some of the things that you've been blaming yourself for in your world, in your life, but you feel like, as you probably felt with your father, that there are things being imposed on you continually that are destructive and harmful and really stopping you from making further personal advance because, well, for instance, you love the earth and the earth is being destroyed because environmental protection laws are being reversed. Along those lines, it makes it very difficult to reconcile to forgive, actually,
Mm-hmm.
the person or people who are doing this to the earth, and also to save the earth. I mean, it's like an inherent conflict, it seems to me.
Well, I mean, we're not perfect, and forgiveness is not some abstraction. So, it hurts our heart. It should hurt our heart to have to be a part of destructiveness in any way. When you're an innocent child, and you know that the adults who are they're charged with looking out for you and taking care of you, and when they are not able to do that, in the moment, it's just very confusing. In the moment, it's, as a child, you don't have enough information to understand why they behave the way they behave. You just know that you have to watch yourself and take care of yourself and do everything you can for self-preservation. And the more you stay in a state of confusion and wonderment about how does the world work, how is it that some people are so kind and so protective of innocent children, and other people are not? Why is that so? How is that so? And so to begin to have a questioning about, in spite of the pain, about trying to understand what's behind people's behavior. That's why I ended up in psychiatry, I'm sure, because I was asking myself those questions since I was very small. People do things that are destructive to one another and to the earth. Not all people. There are people who work hard not to be destructive, but there are people who are irresponsible and unthinking and destructive in their behaviors and attitudes towards the earth, towards themselves, towards other people, and judging them doesn't really accomplish anything. Certainly when we're children, we have to protect ourselves and preserve ourselves to the best of our abilities. But as we become adults, we know how to do that, and that's not what's uppermost. Then we are in a place of awareness that the world needs to change. We need to try to help people who don't understand about destructiveness and about inhumanity to other people. We need to try to make the world different and do what we can to be models of how to treat one another, and do what we can to undo the destructiveness, for example, of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be tolerant, and we have to know that we don't have control. Really, it's beyond individual control, but we can be very impactful as a collective.
Right. Well, let me use Jesus as an example, because he asked God to forgive from the cross. He said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Yeah.
At the same time, when he was actively in ministry, he threw the money changers out of the temple, and he called the priests and Pharisees hypocrites and whitened sepulchres, because he felt that they were just misusing their power in very destructive ways. So as I say, on the one hand, he's forgiving them for torturing him, for whipping him and crucifying him. On the other hand, he was pointing out in very strenuous and very human ways how bad things can be in the political society.
Right. And so Jesus is a good model for us in terms of how to live. We need to speak truth to power. We need to learn about passive resistance, and we need to learn to fight to the extent that we can, verbally, and with the power of whatever position we might have, or be able to join in with other people without violating other people and their rights, and without physically hurting them, harming them.
Right.
yes, we need to be, fighters. The idea of Jesus on the cross saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That's a lesson for all of us, really, because there are so many examples in our lifetime where people are misguided and they don't know the destructiveness that they're a part of. And we know from near-death experiencers, we know from the whole learning that we have from reincarnation, that it takes many lifetimes for people to gain more and more wisdom, more and more capacity to love themselves and love others and understand our oneness with all that is. And so people are not necessarily in the same place on the learning curve. And we just have to know, we have to be glad if we feel that we're in better connection with our higher self. We can't control other people. We can be tolerant.
Yes.
So it applies. It applies to all of us.
Yes. Well, let's turn to NDEs and other personal mystical experiences, and also your interest in reincarnation. How did you become interested? Was your Plymouth Brethren group interested in, or did they believe in reincarnation?
Not exactly. They were very much about, being the chosen ones and believing that God was, Jesus would come back to earth and that they would be the ones that would be chosen, and that everybody else would be, destroyed or, punished in some way. A very fundamentalist, old world kind of view.
Yes.
But the one thing I can say about the Brethren is that they were pacifists. So they did not believe in war and in violence. So that's kind of intriguing.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I was part of the Society of Friends, the Quakers, for many years.
Yes.
And
So was I for many years.
Very good.
Yeah.
They're probably as close to a group organization that professes Christianity, even though they don't necessarily call themselves Christian anymore. But they seem to have embodied Jesus' teachings pretty well. How did you get an interest in near-death experience?
It just came about as naturally as anything. I mean, I think I read Ray Moody's book, Life After Life, probably soon after it was published. I've just always been a seeker, and a seeker of what I would call what is true in terms of, what's true for me and what I can live by. And I guess it was sort of helpful that I grew up in this brethren group that was more of a cult. And my experience was, this is not helpful. This does not teach me anything that I really can use. And so I began to find, go toward spiritual communities that offered something that I thought was more useful and true in my own experience. And so I was part of a gospel church for a while, and then I moved on through there and discovered Quakerism and so forth. But along those lines, I was also reading quite a bit, and so learning about near-death experience just sort of came along the way. I didn't really understand the importance of the reincarnation message until I started reading Brian Weiss, who's a psychiatrist who did and does still past life regression. It's a hypnosis with people that brings them back to their memories of being in past lives. And so once I read Brian Weiss and all of his books, and also so many of the near-death experience accounts, you just, becomes very natural to understand this is not our only lifetime, this lifetime that we're in right now, and that we're equipped, some of us better than others, to find our purpose and our soul's work for our lifetime. And often suffering and trauma is a good way to bring you to the learning that your life is meant for in this particular lifetime.
Yeah. In your practice, have you encountered patients who will suddenly tell you a near-death experience story that they might not have told anyone before?
Doesn't happen very often. People are more frequently telling me about communications with loved ones who have passed. I hear about visitations in dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes visitations that are in waking life, or signs, lots of times signs that their loved ones are with them, that their loved ones are aware of sort of major life events that happened to them, and that they. What's so interesting is so often I'm working with people who have had very difficult relationships with a loved one, similar to what happened in my experience with my father. And then once that loved one passes over, they can do the healing they need to do, and then their relationship with that loved one can become very positive. And that's happened with my father as well. And I've seen it, with a number of people, where they're now in more of a love relationship and a positive connection with the person that they were at odds with when that person was here on Earth.
Mm. Do you feel you've heard from your father in one way or another?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. And this is where the help of mediums comes in. I try to know who the mediums are, who I feel are very reliable. I go to them myself, and I know of several in the area. And if my patients are open to going to a medium for a variety of reasons, sometimes it's directly because they want a connection with someone who's on the other side, and sometimes it's that they're really just wanting to have better information about what is it that their life course really needs to be here. What is their blueprint? What are they meant to do in this lifetime? So working with a medium, even if it's just one reading, it doesn't have to be over and over again, but a reading now and again can be very helpful from a medium. So that's one of the things that I have learned to offer to people. I don't have that skill. I have intuitive abilities, but I don't have that. I'm not somebody who, goes into trance and, can make these kinds of connections with people. And they're, I have been trained in Akashic record reading, and I do understand and believe that is a possibility, but I don't do that myself. These are just things that I know are resources. I know something about how they work and about how to access them when I'm working with my patients.
Uh-huh. Have you tried past life regression yourself?
I had to because I was trained in it. I mean, I'm certified in it.
Uh-huh.
So part of that is that you go through a training. It was about a 5-day training in a class of about 30 or so people. And so, you have people showing you how, and you're witness to many, of these people that are in class with you, going through the hypnotic regression and talking about past lives. And it's very, very exciting to be there and to be aware of it and watchful. I got more from watching everyone else than I did from my own. And I think it's because I don't really need to know more about my past lives. For me, I have plenty to do in terms of what I'm here for. I'm pretty clear about where I am and what work I need to do, and so it's more just a kind of a validation to see what the past life regression involves and how amazing it is, because the lifetimes that people are brought to, those lifetimes have a direct connection to something that is going on in this lifetime that's helpful, that's meaningful. And that's why those lifetimes are the lifetimes that are, at the forefront when people are brought to past life memory.
Yeah. That was actually going to be my next question. Do you have a recollection of a past life that explains why you're doing the work you're doing today?
No, not particularly. I had the past life work that I was able to uncover was very sort of scattered, smatterings of different lifetimes. I didn't get the whole thing from any of my lifetimes, the whole story. I witnessed some people who did, who got details from sort of beginning to end
Yes.
of different lifetimes. And then of course part of the regression, part of the work is to ask them, what did you learn in that lifetime? And amazingly, people can tell you within seconds, and in a couple of sentences, what they learned in that lifetime that they took with them, that they now, they brought forward into the next lifetime or, future lifetimes. So that's what's, it's so convincing and it's transformative in its own way, to experience all of that.
In the couple minutes we have left, I'd like to ask you if in your psychiatric practice and in helping people to develop the self-love, how would you recommend that people who've had a defining moment in their lives, say a personal mystical experience that shows for sure that convinces them for sure that there is life after this life, how can that reality for them be translated or used in the world to help other people who are perhaps like today scared to death that they or one of their relatives is going to succumb to this flu?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we hear so often from people when they have near-death experience is that they come back and they say, all is well. No matter how it appears, there's one thing that I know for sure is that things are not as they appear. So even now with this pandemic, it appears that, we have this global threat, and it appears that we are in danger. And of course, if you're sick or if you have a loved one who's sick, that's the message. That's what you experience. That death and suffering, and that's the reality. But there's more going on than what meets the eye. And we're here. One of the learnings from this whole experience is that we belong to one another, and that illness, sickness, is something that is part of life, and death is part of life, and we will live on, and our loved ones will live on.
Yes.
And we will have connection with them when we pass over.
Yes. Oh, Rebecca, it seems we're out of time for today. Tell the folks how they can find out more about your holistic center work.
Well, I do have a website,
okay,
which is www.rebecca, REBECCA, S as in Suzanne, Valla, VALLA, MD.com, Rebecca S. Valla, MD.com. And that will give you, specific information about many of the things that I've already talked about, and also how to contact me through my office in Winston-Salem. I'm very active with the IANDS organization. I'm always present at the national conferences that IANDS has yearly.
Yes. Sometimes
I am a presenter. I have done a video which can be reached through the IANDS conference 2016. If you look at that online, and then I go to videos, and then my name, Rebecca S. Valla, Dr. Valla. That talk is on self-love.
Yes, and it's really well worth watching. I thought it was great. So, well, thank you again so much, Rebecca, for coming on the show and being with us. And the next time we have a national conference, I'm sure I'll see you there.
Yes, for sure, Lee. Thank you so much for your work and for your radio program.
Oh, well, thanks. I love doing this. It's amazing.
Yes.
And let me remind all the listeners out there who I dubbed telephone chaplains 2 shows ago Don't forget to keep using the phone or social media and check in on those folks you think might benefit from having someone listen to them for a change. Just call them up and say, how are you doing, and let them talk. And recommend our new IANDS NDE radio app for both Apple and Android. Just go to the Apple or Google store to download it for free. Please stay home and stay well. Until next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, this is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.